Hey guys, I'm back, and today we're looking at Dragon Quest IV, the final NES Dragon Quest game. And ooh boy, this is an interesting one. Development on Dragon Quest IV started in early 1998, literally right after they wrapped up Dragon Quest III, and from day one, the team wasn't trying to make Erdrick Trilogy Part 4. They wanted something completely new. A new world, a new structure, and a new identity. Dragon Quest IV was to be the start of the Zenithian trilogy. Let me explain. So Dragon Quest 1 through 3, that's the Erdrick trilogy. Dragon Quest 4 through 6, the Zenithian trilogy. Get it? Got it? Good. The core idea of this game was the chapter system. 5 separate stories that eventually merged together. It was meant to ease new players in. Chapter 1 feels like Dragon Quest 1. Chapter 2 feels like Dragon Quest 2. And by the time you hit Chapter 5, you're in full Dragon Quest 4 territory. And yes, Dragon Quest 4 did get a US release. But let's just say there's a reason I didn't know much about this game until I really did research into the Dragon Quest franchise. As Dragon Quest IV Chapters of the Chosen sold not great in the United States. Roughly 80,000 copies. That's tiny. It came out in 1992, right when everyone was jumping ship to the SNES. Now, the original Famicom release in Japan, which came out in 1990, sold over 3.1 million copies. The game was an immediate success over there, but in America, no one really seemed to care about JRPGs, especially JRPGs on last-gen hardware. So yeah, for most of the planning of these reviews, I genuinely thought this game never left Japan, and I would have to play a fan translation to experience it. Thankfully, I didn't have to go that route. So what are we waiting for? Let's dive into the game itself and start with the story. Starting with Chapter 1, which follows the soldier Ragnar, who's been ordered by the king of Burland to investigate why children have been going missing from the nearby town of Ismit. You head over there, and yeah, a lot of kids have vanished. And right away, something I love about this chapter is how the world feels alive somewhat. You can actually see other soldiers out on the job. You can talk to them in caves, in towns, even in the tower later on. And when you first start the quest, you can literally watch a soldier walk out of the castle and talk to him mid-stride. It's such a small thing, but it makes the world feel reactive in a way I don't think any other NES RPG did. Anyway, in Ismit, you find out a man named Alex who has lost his mind, stole some bread because he was starving, and is now in jail. Turns out this Alex is the husband of a woman back in Burland named Angus, so Ragnar goes back, tells the woman what happened, and she immediately marches down to Ismit jail to snap him out of it. And how does she do it? She slaps him so hard, he regains his sanity. Don't know how that works, but hey, peak Dragon Quest energy right there. Once he's thinking straight, Alex explains that he lost his sanity because of a monster attack. And he reveals the location of a secret playground known only to the children, which is just a random patch of woods with a well you can fall into, because of course it is. Drop down the well and find a cave, and inside, you hear this mysterious voice guiding you towards a treasure chest. Inside is a pair of flying shoes, and anyone with a functioning brain cell can tell you these are meant to launch you straight to that weird tower surrounded by water near the village. I go in there, and on my first attempt, yeah, I got my ass handed to me. These monsters did not mess around. But thankfully, one of the soldiers inside mentions he regrets not bringing along a heal slime. And that's your hint to go back to the well and find Healey, the heal slime, who wants to become a human. And Healey's logic is questionable, to say the least. He thinks traveling with a human will somehow make him human. But hey, I need a healer, so I let him tag along. And the first thing I did was take him to the nearby town to buy herbs. The shopkeeper takes one look at him, and I'll just let you watch this. This is hilarious. And another bit of really cool world building is the reason Ragnar starts with such terrible gear is because the king keeps taxes low, meaning he can't afford to properly equip his soldiers. It's a tiny detail, but it makes the kingdom feel like an actual functioning place instead of generic RPG castle number 12. Anyway, once I was geared up and Healey was ready to go, I went back into the tower, and inside you can actually run into more soldiers, including your commander, who's badly injured. Turns out the children were taken deeper inside the castle, and the villains are trying to resurrect some ancient evil. And a legendary hero is supposed to rise up and stop it. But the hero is still a child, so the bad guy's plan is basically kill the hero before he grows up. Honestly, I gotta hand it to them. That's a pretty competent plan right there. Anyway, you make your way deeper into the castle. Fight a weird wizard guy and his giant eyeball monster, rescue the kids, and bring them back to their mothers. Ragnar returns to the king and says he wants to go find this legendary hero and protect him so he can someday defeat the coming evil. The king gives him his blessing and then gives Ragnar a ridiculous amount of EXP. Like, how? How do you give someone experience points? Do you just talk to them really fast? Do you plug a cable into their head and download knowledge directly into their brain? Yeah, I don't think this game's world has that kind of technology yet. But with that, Ragnar sets off on his journey, and Chapter 1 comes to an end. Alright, now it's time to talk about Chapter 2, Elena's Adventure, or Princess Elena's Adventure, I should say. And right away, this chapter wastes no time showing you just what kind of princess Elena is. She is a tomboy, in the most Dragon Quest way possible. The story opens with her father, the King of Santim, forbidding her from leaving the castle because it's too dangerous. So naturally, we don't listen. You start the chapter inside the castle, wandering around, talking to people, and then you go to Elena's room and discover that apparently she busted out of the castle at one point by literally breaking a hole into the wall so she could sneak out. The castle staff patched it up, but they did a terrible job. It's just a few wooden boards nailed over the hole. So what does Elena do? She runs at it at full speed, kicks it down, and jumps out of the hole. And she jumps down an entire castle floor. And keep in mind, this castle has, from what I can see exploring it, 3 floors, okay? And medieval castle floors weren't tiny. We're talking like 12 to 16 feet per floor. So when Elena kicks it down the boards and jumps out of her room, she's basically dropping a good 15 feet. Like it's nothing. And keep in mind, she's doing this twice onto hard stone, which is not a safe place to land in real life. That's the kind of fall that breaks ankles, legs, or ribs. And Elena just shrugs it off like it's nothing. Why is her dad worried about monsters hurting her? Sir, your daughter is just built different. At this point, I'm starting to think her father shouldn't be worried about the monsters hurting her. He should be worried about her hurting the monsters. Anyway, you jump down to the lower level and then to the ground. Her tutor Bray and her servant Christo come running out in a panic. They're basically like, "Princess, please don't do this. If you get hurt, the king is gonna murder us. At least let us come with you so we can pretend we tried." So now your party is Elena, the tomboy princess, Christo, her loyal servant, and Bray, her tutor. And it wasn't long before I made my way northwest to a mountain village. And surprise, surprise, there's a monster problem. A big one. The villagers are being threatened by a monster demanding young girls as sacrifices. Seriously, what is it with Dragon Quest monsters and wanting young girl sacrifices? First it was the Orochi in Dragon Quest III, now it's this thing. Like, is there a union for this? And true story, the first time I fought this monster, I got absolutely wrecked. I limped into the village with one party member already dead because Elena's team starts off weak. Then I accidentally talked to the shaman, not realizing I was volunteering myself as the next sacrifice. And yeah, the game does not heal you before the boss fight. So yeah, that one was on me. Anyway, after doing a ton of grinding, because like I said, Elena's party starts off about as sturdy as wet cardboard, I went back, fought the monster again, and I took it down pretty fast. And once the village is saved, I headed to the north to the town of Finnor, and immediately the game hits you with a plot twist. Someone is impersonating Princess Elena. So naturally we go and investigate and walk straight into a kidnapping in progress. We try to stop it, but nope, the kidnappers got away. But if you talk to a boy in town, he tells you that his dog found a note the kidnappers dropped. And the note basically says, "Bring us the golden bracelet from a nearby cave, or the princess gets it." Why didn't they just go get it themselves? Like seriously, are they allergic to caves or something? So we head into the mini dungeon, grab the golden bracelet, and return to Frinrar at night. If you go to the graveyard in the northwest corner, the kidnappers are waiting. You hand over the bracelet and they release the fake princess. And surprise, She's just an actress. You see, she dressed up as the princess and everyone started treating her nicely. So she just rolled with it. But after getting kidnapped, she's like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. And as thanks, she gives you the thief's key, which lets you open certain locked doors. Next, we head to the south, to a desert bazaar. And a guard stops us when we get here and says, hey, your dad, the king, there's a problem. You should probably go home and check it out. So we do. And it turns out the king has lost his voice. He is completely mute. The minister says the old man behind the castle might know of a cure. So we go talk to him, and he tells us that a poet named Marnu in Cernua, or the town of Cernua, once had voice troubles and might know something. So we go talk to Marnu, and he says an elven medicine called birdsong nectar healed him. And he found it at the desert bazaar. So we go to the bazaar and nobody sells this stuff. Like, I looked around everywhere and no one was selling this nectar. So I actually had to look up a guide online, and it turns out the nectar is actually in Birdsong Tower, south of the bazaar. So off we go to the top of the tower, where we find two elven children playing. They run away when we approach, and one of them drops a bottle of medicine. Her sister tells her to leave it, so we pick it up. And hey, it's birdsong nectar! I really hope one of those kids didn't desperately need this medicine, because we just straight up stole it. Oh well, finders keepers. We take it back to the king, he drinks it, and his voice returns. He tells us he's been having a reoccurring nightmare about a giant monster emerging from the evil world and destroying everything. And the moment he tries to tell his chancellor, his voice vanished. And then he tells Elena he won't stop her anymore. She can travel the world and figure out what's going on. And he tells Bray and Christo that her safety is in their hands. And I'm sorry, what? Before, he was terrified of her leaving the castle because monsters might hurt her. And now he's having nightmares about a giant world-ending demon, and he's like, yeah, go explore, have fun. You two keep her safe now. Sir, that is the opposite of what a parent should do. If anything, this should make him even more protective. But whatever, we're off again. And we make our way to the town of Endor. And no, there are no Ewoks. It's just a town with a giant tournament, a casino, a monster fighting arena, and most importantly, poker. I spent way too much time in the casino. There is a monster arena in here, like in Dragon Quest III, but I only did one fight. The slot machines also worked as expected, and I fiddled with them for a minute, but not for too long. But poker? Poker is my weakness. I don't gamble with real money, but I love playing 5-card draw. And Dragon Quest's version is basically the same. You get 5 cards, you choose which ones to hold, you discard the rest, and get replacements. And your final hand determines your payout. Pairs, straights, flushes, full houses, they're all here. And honestly, it's a great time waster. but I had a review to complete. So I had to stop myself and get myself back on track. Then we talked to the King of Endor, and it turns out he made a very stupid promise. You see, he's hosting a big tournament here in his city, and whoever wins the tournament gets to marry his daughter. And guess what? He regrets it, because the guy currently winning is Necroso, and neither the king nor the princess wants her to marry him. But here's the loophole. If a woman wins the tournament, the princess can't marry her. So if Princess Elena wins, the king can keep his promise without actually marrying off his daughter. And I know someone is going to ask, but don't lesbians exist? And to that I say, yes, lesbians absolutely exist. But this is a world modeled after medieval Europe. Lesbian marriage wasn't exactly on the table. So naturally, we enter the tournament and beat everyone. And when it's time to fight Necroso, he's gone. Vanished. No one knows where he went. But the king is thrilled. He declares Elena the winner, which, yeah, that's the outcome he wanted anyway. But as soon as we leave the castle after the tournament, a guard rushes up to us and tells us to return home immediately. And then he dies. We try to use the return spell to warp back, but something blocks it. So we warp to the nearest town and walk the rest of the way there. And when we get there, the castle is empty. There's no guards, no people, no music, just a cat. It's eerie. And with no answers and no one in sight, Elena sets off again, hoping to find out what happened to her father and everyone else. Next up is Chapter 3, Talon's story. And this one is wild. Talon is a guy who dreams of becoming a merchant someday. His story begins with his wife waking him up, packing his lunch, and sending him off to work like he's heading to a medieval 9 to 5. And I actually gotta give the game some credit here. You actually have to spend a full day working at a job. Like you're literally behind the counter selling weapons to customers. It works like this. People walk in, they ask if it's a weapon shop. You can say yes or no, but I would advise saying yes, because after you say yes, they will establish whether they're going to buy or sell something, and you can accept or refuse either offer. You can even turn people away just because you feel like it. And if someone sells you something, it goes straight into the shop's inventory, and you can resell it for profit. And that's actually how I got my chain sickle, by the way. You see, some guy sold it cheap to the shop, and then the next day, before I started my shift, I bought it off my own boss. Capitalism, baby! It's immersive, and it's charming, but man, does it get boring as hell after a while. But for an NES game, this is insanely cool. After you work, you go home, talk to your wife, go to bed, and you can repeat this cycle as many times as you want. No limit. You can grind money forever if you feel like it. But eventually, I had to look up a guide because I had no idea what to do next, besides be a cashier forever. Turns out you need to head north to a dungeon to find the iron safe, which prevents you from losing half your gold when you die. And honestly, this dungeon is pretty neat. 2 puzzles stood out to me. One where you open water gates and get swept downstream, and another where a giant boulder starts following you like it's reenacting Indiana Jones, and I'm not entirely sure how the boulder puzzle works. I just know I ran around like a maniac until the boulder plugged a hole and let me through. Once I grabbed the iron safe, I headed south and stumbled into a weird little place called Foxville. There's a guy there named DeGardy who's stuck there because a girl won't let him leave, so he decides to marry her and stay forever. Yeah, that's totally normal. Something told me this guy was gonna be important, and sure enough, he is. Next up is the Kingdom of Buamu, where the king is preparing to go to war with Endor. But he can't because the bridge is out. And the guy who's supposed to fix it is the Guardy. See, I told you he was important. Also, if you bring armor to this castle, they'll buy it for a ridiculous amount of money, because they're preparing to go to war and they're short on armor. It's a great way to make money. Prince Reed also asks you to meet him behind the weapons shop at night. He has a favor to ask, but we'll get to that a little later. First, we need to go to the jail and do a stealth section. Yes, a stealth section in an NES Dragon Quest game. It took me a few tries, but I eventually snuck past the guards and talked to a kid inside. Turns out he's Tom's son. Tom being a guy from your hometown who's wondering what happened to his son. Turns out Tom's son stole something and got thrown in jail. And now he wants you to bring him a wing of the wyvern so he can escape. You bring it to him, he flies out, and promises never to steal again. And if you go back to your hometown of Lambaki, Tom's son lets you borrow his dog. Why do we need a dog? Because we're going back to Foxville. Yeah, turns out the entire town is an illusion created by a fox. Yes, a fox. Who happens to be terrified of dogs. So you bring the dog, the illusion breaks, and the fox will give you a full plate armor in exchange for letting him go. And DeGarly wakes up like he just had the weirdest dream of his life and runs off to Baramu to fix the bridge. Return the dog, and now we can finally meet Prince Reed behind the weapons shop. He actually gives you a letter to deliver to Prince Maya of Endor, and you can actually read it. Dear Maya, my father is planning to invade Endor. Please warn your father. But you can't read the rest because Maya isn't there. So you take it to Princess Maya, and her father overhears everything when you read the letter to her, and he writes his own letter to the King of Baramu. And it basically reads, Dear friend, our children are in love. Let's postpone the invasion, please. And the King of Baramu is totally fine with this. Because if his son marries the princess, his son will become the King of Endor someday. So yeah, war cancelled. After this, the King of Endor gives you permission to buy a shop in town. I didn't know which one he was talking about, so I wandered around until I found an old man in the south part of town selling his shop for 35,000 gold. So yeah, Time to make a lot of money. So, how did I personally raise 35,000 gold to buy the shop? Well, I did it in 2 ways. First, I sold armor to Booamoo for ridiculous prices. And I also did a side quest for an old man who pays you 25,000 gold for doing it. You see, this old collector in town wants you to retrieve a silver statuette from a cave northeast of Endor. And the cave is actually pretty interesting. To reach the statue, you actually have to raise the water level on the lower floor. And you almost drown a guy down there. Like, the water comes rushing in, and this poor guy who is treasure hunting in this cave barely escapes with his life. But hey, he found some treasure chests, so I guess it worked out. Anyway, once you grab the statuette and bring it back, the old man hands you the 25,000 gold. And with the Balamu armor hustle, I finally bought the shop. And once you buy it, your wife runs it. You bring her merchandise, like weapons, armor, and items, and she sells it, and will give you the money the next day after she sells it. Honestly, they've got a pretty solid business model going here. So what do you do next? Well, the game doesn't tell you at all. I had to look up a guide, and it turns out there's a cave to the east where a man is trying to excavate a tunnel, but he needs over 60,000 gold to hire workers. Conveniently, the king of Endor is offering exactly 60,000 gold if Talon can bring him 7 broadswords and 7 half-plate armors. Getting the broadswords? That was easy. I bought them from a shop. Half-plate armors? Oh boy. I had no idea where I could buy them, so I spent literally hours grinding random enemies, hoping they would drop one. Eventually, I got all 7, turned them in, and the king paid up. We gave the excavation guy his money, and he tells us it'll take a while. So, what does Talon's wife suggest he do? Why don't you go down to the casino and relax? So naturally, I did. I spent way too long playing poker and slot machines. Honestly, if I didn't have a review to finish, I'd still be there. Eventually, a letter arrives saying the tunnel is complete. We head through it, and that's the end of Talon's chapter. And according to his ending, Talon sets off on another great adventure to find legendary weapons so he can become the world's greatest arm merchant. Honestly, pretty boss behavior right there. So now we move on to Chapter 4, the story of 2 sisters out for revenge. Mara is the older sister, and she is a dancer. Nara is the younger sister, and she is a fortune teller. Their story begins in the town of Mubara, a town full of music, dancing, and color. The chapter opens with Mara performing for a huge crowd. After the show, it is established that no, she didn't see her father's killer in the audience. They collect their pay from the showrunner and head out. You can return to their hometown of Kivis at this point, and everyone there knows them. And I have to point this out, there's a guy leading a horse around like he's plowing a field, and it's such a tiny detail, and even though it's cool, the farmer would be behind the plow and the horse, not leading the horse around. Thought I would point that out. And the innkeeper won't charge you to stay in this town's inn, by the way, because you're Edgar's daughters. So yeah, thought that was cool. Anyway, it turns out this Edgar was an alchemist, and one of his apprentices, Balzac, murdered him. And his other apprentice, Orin, is hiding in a cave to the west. So naturally, we're going there next. And this cave's main gimmick is elevators. Yes, stone elevators in a medieval fantasy world. To reach different levels and areas of the cave, you have to ride up and down on these platforms. It's not complicated, but it's definitely a unique dungeon design. Eventually, you will find Orin in there, not far from the Lamp of Darkness, which I think it's really cool that they brought this item back from Dragon Quest III. Anyway, Orin tells you he wants revenge too. It turns out Balzac sided with someone called the Evil Ones and gained powerful magic. But with the Spear of Silence, which is in this cave somewhere, we can shut down his spells. So then Orin decides to join the party. And we explore the cave a little more, and eventually we find the Spear of Silence. So now that we've got the Spear of Silence, it's time to find Balzac. And once again, I had to consult a guide because the game does not tell you where to start looking for this guy. Turns out we need to go to Keylon Castle. And something is off about this place. There are young girls everywhere, all different ages, being treated like royalty. They're living in luxury, eating well, wearing fancy clothes, having the time of their lives. And nobody explains why. But if you talk to a random scholar, he drops this bomb. To complete the secret of evolution, the essence of girls' youth is needed. Yeah, that does not sound good. Apparently, this kingdom has a new king, but nobody knows where he is except for the Chancellor. And every time a loud noise happens, the Chancellor runs straight to the king's room. So, can you guess how we're gonna get in there?
Explosions!
So yeah, we gotta go get some gunpowder so we can blow it up right next to his room. To do that, we need to head to the town of Hayville, where a man in jail explains that he accidentally set off gunpowder near the Chancellor's room, and got arrested for it. He got the gunpowder from Akatimatu Mine. I probably butchered that name, but I'm probably butchering most names in this game, so who cares? Oh, also, there's a random Yeti monster in the jail who just says Goon Goon. Why is he here? I got no idea. Just thought I would point that out. Also, before you head to the mine, you can actually visit the House of Prophecy. You don't have to, but the nun there gives you some ominous foreshadowing. The man you seek is protected by a tremendous evil force. More lights will join you. When you are sunk in despair, your true journey will begin. Cryptic? Yes. Foreboding? Also yes. Helpful? Not really. Anyway, we continue to Akatumo, and this town is in horrible shape. Poison gas has been leaking from the mines, killing people, and there are bodies everywhere, sick villagers and tombstones. It's shockingly dark for an NES game. Everyone tells you not to go into the mine. So of course, we're going into the mine. Inside, there are monsters everywhere. But with enough persistence, you can find the gunpowder. You'll also find some miners who are still digging despite the poison because they're that desperate for gold. Talk about dedication or insanity. We take the gunpowder back to Kelon Castle, set it off near the Chancellor's room, and then sneak behind him as he rushes to the king. Yes, another stealth section in an NES RPG. We follow him through a secret wall into the king's chamber. And surprise, the king is Balzik. And he's looking rough. Turns out the reason he killed Edgar is because Edgar accidentally discovered the secret of evolution. And from the clues I've gotten throughout the game, it seems like Edgar was trying to turn iron into gold and somehow figured out instead how to evolve living things. How? No idea. Alchemy is weird. Anyway, Balzik used the secret of evolution to transform himself into whatever the hell he is now. And also, what is it with these old NES games and their villains turning themselves into stronger forms that look monstrous? I mean, come on. What's the deal with it? Ninja Gaiden did this too, and it's just kind of strange. Like, how come every evolved form of a human looks like a freaking monster? And yes, I did do a review of the Ninja Gaiden NES trilogy. A review title card should be up in the corner of the screen. So anyway, back to the game. We end up fighting Balzik, and it's a tough battle. But if you use the Spear of Silence, you can make him a lot weaker. And after you beat him, this happens. So now we got to fight Kelon. And you cannot win this fight. Yeah, this is an unwinnable boss fight. And after you get your ass kicked, you'll wake up in a cell, badly injured, with this old man. And he says he has a boarding pass and he was planning on escaping the country. But he's too old to travel. So he gives you the boarding pass and tells you to go find a ship and flee. So you escape the jail through a tunnel, but the guards spot you on the way out, and there are too many of them. So Orin stays behind to hold them off, while Mara and Nara flee. The sisters make it to Hayville, board the ship, and set sail for Endor. And that's how Chapter 4 ends, with the sisters escaping with their lives, but unfortunately, they were unable to avenge their father. Next up is Chapter 5, the final chapter. And oh boy, buckle up, because things are about to get crazy. It starts in a small, nameless village deep in the mountains, far east of Endor. The villagers live quietly. They never leave and never let outsiders in. And the place is so secret that only the people living there know it exists. But, well, that's about to change. You take control of the hero, who you can name whatever you want. So naturally, I named him after myself. Your first task is simple. Take lunch to your father, who is fishing in the north part of town. You can talk to the villagers here, explore a bit, and even chat with your best friend, an elf girl named Celia. After delivering lunch, you can head back home to get your own meal. But before you can eat it, it turns out monsters have found the village, and they're about to attack. Everyone rushes to hide you. Turns out, you're some kind of chosen one, a legendary hero, destined to destroy the coming evil. And your parents? Yeah, they're not your real parents. But they don't have time to explain everything. They shove you into the cellar to hide. Celia follows down, says she won't let them kill you, then shapeshifts into you and walks outside pretending to be the hero. And dies. You can actually hear the monsters talking outside, and one of them is Necroso. Yes, that Necroso. He leads the attack, sees you supposedly die, and declares the hero slain. Except it wasn't you. It was Celia. And when you finally come out, the entire village is obliterated. Everyone is dead. There are no survivors. Just ruins and silence. You can search around and find a feather cap, but you can't equip it. So the only thing left to do is head south. And as you head south, you will eventually reach a woodsman's shack. There's a lumberjack there who somehow knows things haven't been going well for you and tells you to take whatever you need from his jars. Seems like a nice guy. You continue south and you'll find Barnica Castle. As soon as you enter, you see a group of adventurers heading out. Now that the legendary hero is supposedly dead, these guys have decided that they're going to save the world. Well, except for the old man in the back. He's just tagging along because he thinks he can make some money by traveling with these guys. Gotta respect the hustle, I guess. From here, you head to the tunnel Talon paid for back in Chapter 3, and make your way to Endor. In Endor, you'll find Nara telling fortunes. If you ask her to read yours, she immediately realizes, wait, you're the hero we've been looking for. She joins your party on the spot and tells you her sister Mara is in the casino. And sure enough, Mara is in there, blowing all their money on slot machines. Great job, big sis. After a quick argument, both sisters join your party. And because this is the casino, and because I love poker, I spent another 20 minutes playing cards. What? It's fun! And I ended up with so many coins, I bought one of everything in the prize shop. Do I know what half this stuff does? Nope! But I had a feeling it would come in handy later. Also, if you want, you can watch the wedding of Princess Mai of Endor and Prince Reed of Buamu in the Colosseum. It's a neat little detail that I liked. So the next thing on our agenda is getting across the desert. Problem: we need a horse and a cart to do that. Bigger problem: the guy who owns one, a man named Hector, absolutely refuses to lend it to anyone. Why? Because he doesn't trust anybody. Turns out he used to be an adventurer like us, but one day he heard about a cave containing the world's most valuable treasure. He went there with his best friend, and according to him, his friend betrayed him. Ever since then, he can't trust anyone anymore. And he tells us to go away. So naturally, we're going straight to the cave. Inside, if you have all 3 party members, you can break through stone blocks. Why do you need 3 people to break these rocks? No idea. Dragon Quest logic. Eventually, you get separated from Mara and Nara, and this dungeon pulls a really cool trick. Monsters impersonating your party members. You run into the fake Mara and Nara twice, and if you talk to them, they attack you. It's unsettling, but in a good way. Eventually you find the real sisters, but they think you're an imposter. So they test you with a question. Which one of us was in the casino? The correct answer is Mara, and once you answer it correctly, they trust you again and rejoin your party. And by the way, this dungeon has 0 random encounters. None. The only fights in this dungeon are with the imposters. And honestly, that's very refreshing given how most Dragon Quest dungeons are essentially monster gauntlets. And at the end of the dungeon, you find the symbol of faith. And while the game doesn't spell it out, I think it's pretty clear what happened to Hector's friend in here. Hector's friend didn't betray him. More than likely what happened is Hector's friend was killed and a monster impersonated him. Hector probably had to kill the monster in self-defense and thought he killed his friend. That's my theory anyway. You then bring the symbol of faith back to Hector, and looking at the gem, it purifies his mind, and he realizes the most valuable treasure isn't gold, it's trust. And he asks if he can come with us. And of course we accept. And we finally get the horse and the cart. Now, why are we using a horse cart instead of camels to cross a desert? I have no idea. But whatever, into the desert we go. And after crossing the desert with Hector and the horse cart, we arrive in the town of Annex. And oh boy, is this place interesting. Right away, you'll notice something weird. There are 2 inns in this town, right next to each other. Trust me, this is important. When you first enter town, a guy offers to show you around. If you let him. He gives you a full tour, and then brings you to an inn that mysteriously has no one behind the counter. And then he tells you, if you need a place to rest, stay here. The people here are very courteous, and the prices are great. And then he walks right behind the counter himself. Yup, he's the innkeeper, and he charges double the price of the other inn. One inn costs 20 gold. His inn costs 40. How does he stay in business? No idea. Maybe the spa in town brings him enough clueless travelers to keep him afloat. There's also a grave here. The grave of the soldier Revis. His armor is on display in the church and is supposedly the legendary Zenithian armor. But if you come at night and talk to Revis's ghost, he tells you that the armor on display is a fake. The real armor was stolen and swapped out long ago. Good to know for later. And with that done, we head further south to the port town of Kinderin. And it turns out Talon, yes, that Talon, was here not long ago. He's building a ship so he can continue traveling the world. But the town has a problem. The lighthouse is malfunctioning. Monsters took over the lighthouse and replaced the guiding light with their own evil fire. And ships are crashing, trade is halted, and nobody can sail in or out until it's fixed. Talon went to the lighthouse to try and solve the problem. So, that's where we're heading next. Also, if you come here at night, there's a priest trying to flirt with a girl who is much younger than him by saying age doesn't matter. It's weird. and it's funny. I just thought I would point that out. Inside the lighthouse, we run into Talon, and he tells us that the monsters higher up in the tower are too strong for him, and he asks if we can take care of it. We say yes, and he heads back to town. On the 3rd floor, there's actually a devil monster just hanging out. If you talk to him, he says he was waiting to ambush Talon. But since Talon isn't coming up, he decides, screw it, I'll just fast travel to town. So he casts Return, flies into the air, and bonks his head on the ceiling, and knocks himself out. This got a huge laugh out of me. It's just peak slapstick comedy. I love it. To fix the lighthouse, you need to find the Fire of Serenity. Once you have that, beat the monsters at the top of the tower, and then throw the Fire of the Serenity into the brazier to restore the proper light. Once that's done, we return to town, talk to Talon. He explains that monsters keep trying to kill him for some reason, and he asks if he can travel with us. And since we need a boat, yeah, we're more than happy to have him join the party. So Talon is officially in our party. So, after picking up Talon, our next stop is the town of Minitus. And this place is interesting. It's got a massive inn for starters. I thought I would point that out. And in the town square, there's an old man named Minitus who teaches here. And if you talk to him for a bit, he'll give you a treasure map, which is pretty neat. Also, I think it's kind of cool that the town's named after him. That's just interesting, and I didn't notice that until I was literally reading off the script here. Anyway, on the top floor of the inn, we find Christo, and he's gravely ill. Princess Elena has already left for the country of Shotora to find a special root that can cure him. If you talk to Bray, who is here, and if you say you'll help the princess, he'll join your party immediately and leave Christo in the care of the inn staff. And with that, we're off to Shororda. When we arrive in Shororda, we learn the cure we need is called Pindigan root, a powerful herb that can cure almost anything. Basically the medieval equivalent of a miracle drug. But about 5 years ago, a drought wiped out almost all of it. The old king did save a backup seed, but he hid it in a cave to the south, which is, of course, full of monsters. Also, I love that the king of this country is literally out in the fields farming because the country is so broke that even the king has to do manual labor. I mean, when the king of the country is literally out in the fields hoeing dirt, you know things are bad. So we head south to the cave, and guess who we run into? Princess Elena and the adventuring party we saw back in Barnacan Castle. Well, most of them. The old man, who was only there for the money, is gone. But the leader of the party recognizes us and says they're here looking for the seed too. Elena won't join our party yet because she thinks her group can handle it. Spoiler, they can't. And this dungeon here has one of the best puzzles in any game in the series so far. The cave's main gimmick is arrow floors. Step on an arrow and it forces you in that direction. The arrows basically form a giant maze. You have to read the patterns to figure out the correct path. And honestly, This is one of the best JRPG puzzles I've ever seen on the NES. It's clever, it's visual, and it's fair. And the final section is a legit brain teaser. Eventually, we reach the seed and bring it back to the king. And then, we get one of the dumbest moments in the entire game. The king plants the seed, and it instantly sprouts into a full plant with a bloom on it. And unless this plant only grows in one hyper-specific environment, a plant that grew this fast would be an ecological disaster. This thing would take over the entire damn planet in a week. But hey, we got the root. So we return to Mintos, and Princess Elena is already there. Turns out, her group didn't find the seed. Go figure. But hey, we did. She grinds the root and gives it to Cristo. And he's back in action. Then they start talking and realize, wait, you guys are going after Necroso too? Are you the legendary hero? And once they realize who we are, Elena, Cristo, and Bray all join our party. And just like that, the gang is coming together. As we leave the inn, a bard tells us that a man named Ragnar was searching for the hero. He once stayed here a while back and said he was heading to Talon in the far west. So that's our next destination. Time to find the final chosen one. But before we leave the city, Hector stops us. He explains that he'll have to take over his father's inn someday, and he wants to study under Mintos to prepare for that. He wishes us farewell and heads inside to begin his training. But he lets us keep the cart, so that's good, I guess. It's sad to see him go, but hey, at least he's found his own path. So next, we head to Talon Castle. And it turns out, security has gotten a lot tighter since the sisters were here. You now need a magic key to get inside. How do I know this? Because Healey is standing right outside. And he's human. Yes, Healey, the heel slime, the little blue blob from Ragnar's chapter, is now a human boy. How did he become human? Great question. The game does not explain it at all. He says that if we want to help Ragnar, we're gonna need some magic keys. And he suggests that we go to Hayville. So I go there and find absolutely nothing. I then look up a guide and find out that if you want an actual clue, you have to go to Edgar's old house, Mara and Nara's father's home. Go into the basement, and there is a friendly slime living down there. Yes, a friendly slime in a basement. Sure, why not? He tells you that Edgar has a secret laboratory hidden in a nearby cave. And remember that cave from chapter 4? The one with the stone elevators? Yeah, we have to go back there. And something I find absolutely hilarious about coming back to this dungeon is the fact that you take the entire wagon with you. Yes, you take an entire wagon with a horse into the cave. All I can say is that must be one very big cave. And some very, very advanced stone elevators. Head to the room where you found the Lamp of Darkness. Search around and you'll find a hidden button. Press it and a staircase opens up, leading to Edgar's secret lab. Well, lab is stretching it. It looks more like a cozy underground apartment. But whatever, the important thing is the magic key is down here. With the key in hand, we return to Talon Castle. We head to the secret passageway that leads to the King's Chamber, the same one from Chapter 4, and we see Ragnar being dragged inside as a prisoner. Except Ragnar, being Ragnar, breaks free, defeats all the guards around him, and recognizes us. And he's like, "You're the legendary hero I've been searching for. Come on, let's take down the evil behind this door." And we open the door, and surprise! It's not Balzik, it's Talon, the beast monster who nearly killed the sisters earlier in the story. And he is very happy to fight us again. This time though, we beat him. After the fight, Ragnar asks to join our party. And of course we say yes. He's the tank we've been missing. And when we leave the castle, we talk to Healey again. He's thrilled that Ragnar is safe and asks us to thank him for everything he's done for him. Then Healey wanders off to do whatever heel slimes that become human do. Now that Ragnar is finally with us, time to track down Balzik so the sisters can finally get their revenge. We find him in Santim Castle, Princess Elena's old home. The one that was mysteriously emptied earlier in the game. Inside, the castle is crawling with monsters. You can actually talk to Balzik, who is ruling the place, but the monsters admit they're only following his orders because Necroso told them to. When we confront Balzik, he proudly shows off how much more his body has evolved. Dude looks like he's been injecting the secret of evolution straight into his veins. Like, lay off the magic steroids, my guy. They're not helping your looks. They're just making you very, very ugly. Despite his new form, he goes down pretty fast. And he's shocked, genuinely shocked that we beat him so easily. Then the monsters swarm around him and say, "We must report to Necroso that the experiment failed. We need the golden bracelet to complete the secret of evolution." And then they teleport away with Balzik's body, clearing out the castle. And the sisters finally got their revenge. Sort of. Balzik is dead, but the real threat, whoever this Necroso is still out there. So, what's next on our agenda? Well, I had to look up a guide again because the game absolutely does not tell you this. But we need the full set of Zenithian armor. What is a Zenithian? Great question. I have no idea. But we need it. And since we just took out Balzik, the first thing we need is the Staff of Magma, hidden in a room in Santim Castle. There is zero indication that you need this. None. But trust me, it's mandatory later. So we grab it and move on. Next, we gotta head to Static Castle. And by the way, I love this town. Static Castle Town is just really cool looking. You have to actually have a boat to get into the castle as well as to explore most of the town. It's definitely a very unique design. Is it a practical design? Probably not, but it's still cool. The reason we came here is because the king has made a declaration. Anyone who can make him laugh may have whatever they desire. And wouldn't you know it, he has the Zenithian helm. So naturally, we gotta go try to make him laugh. And we fail miserably. But there's a legendary jester named Panon who can make anyone laugh. We head to the theater and Monobara, find him, and he agrees to help us. So we take him to the king, and when we bring him there, he doesn't even try to perform. He just lays it out straight. I can't make you laugh, but the people who brought me here, they're the ones who will save the world. Give them the Zenithian helm. And the king does. We also learn the real reason he held this contest. He wanted entertainers to come to cheer his people up. It was never about him, it was about giving his kingdom hope. And now that he knows the world needs saving, he gladly hands over the helm. Next, we learn that the Zenithian shield was originally in Ragnar's homeland of Burland. We go there, and the king is thrilled to see Ragnar again, and thrilled that he found the hero. And then he explains that his grandfather traded the shield away to the Queen of Gardenburg. Why did he do that? The king has no idea. I'm personally betting that the Grandpa King was trying to get between the queen's legs, if you know what I mean. But that's just me. To reach Gardenburg, we head east to a canyon blocked by a mountain. This is where the Staff of Magma comes in. Use it on a random tile with absolutely no hint from the game, and the mountain crumbles, opening the path. Thank you, Internet! So then we head to Gardenburg, and it is a kingdom populated entirely by women. There's one old man here who runs the healing house, and that's it. There's also a traveler who is stuck here because of the volcanic eruption and doesn't seem too thrilled that the path is now open. We try to talk to the queen, but she is not interested. She believes that her kingdom has stayed safe because they don't allow travelers, so she politely tells us to leave. I do have to ask how this kingdom reproduces if they don't allow travelers, because let me put it this way. Women by themselves can't get pregnant. So how do they continue their race? Great question. I have no idea. And naturally, we don't leave. We snoop around the castle and find a random guy poking around in a room. He tells us to check the drawers. Then he leaves. We check the drawers, and immediately a woman rushes in, screaming, "Thief!" And a guard drags us to the queen, who accuses us of stealing the priestess' bronze amulet. You can deny it, but she's not convinced. So she says, "Fine, prove your innocence, but one of your party members stays here as a hostage." So we leave someone behind and head south to a cave to find the real thief. And at the bottom of the cave, we find the idiot who set us up. He tries to escape, but if you make a beeline for the exit, he can't get away. We fight him, beat him, and he confesses. Right then, a female guard rushes in. Turns out the queen had her spying on us the whole time, ready to help if anything went wrong. She then drags the thief back to the castle. We return to the queen, who thanks us for finding the real culprit. She gives us the final key, which opens every locked door in the game and tells us we can retrieve our party member. And finally, she gives us the Zenithian shield, which was in her basement the whole time. 2 Zenithian items down, 2 to go. So next on our Zenithian scavenger hunt is the Zenithian armor, which is found in a random cave just north of the Metal King. And real quick, let me explain the Metal King real quick. I don't fully understand his whole deal, but basically, you find many medals throughout the game. Bring them to the Metal King, and he gives you rewards depending on how many you've collected. They're not tied to quests, they're just hidden everywhere as a bonus for exploring. I didn't really go out of my way to hunt for them, but if you're into that kind of thing, it's a cool system. Anyway, just north of his shrine is a cave containing the Zenithian armor. And there's nothing too special about this cave, except for one thing. You have to sail your boat inside of it to reach the stairs leading down. If you know where to go, you can honestly clear this place in like 5 minutes. And after grabbing the armor, I ended up sleeping in Izmit Village. And here's where the hero has a strange dream. I'll let the cutscene speak for itself. It's cryptic, it's eerie, and it's clearly important. So naturally, we're going to look for that tower. The tower is located in Rose Village, a settlement full of dwarves. And before you even get near the tower, you'll need the Flute of Uncovering. I really hope you thought to grab that back when you defeated Balzac at Santum Castle, even though the game didn't tell you to, and there was zero indication that you would ever need it, and that it would be at the castle. Just like in the dream, you play the flute near the tower, and a hidden staircase appears, and you descend. Inside the tower, you climb upward, and eventually fight a Sorrow Knight at the top. Once you defeat it, you meet the woman from the dream, Rose. And here's the short version of what she tells you. The world is about to be destroyed by monsters. Their ruler is Sorrow, who renamed himself into Necroso. He intends to use the secret of evolution to become unstoppable. She begs you to stop him, even if it means killing him. She gives you ruby teardrops, which crumble away in your hands as she's saying this. It's a heartbreaking scene. Rose clearly still loves Sorrow, but she knows he's gone too far. You can also talk to a friendly slime here, who tells you that the Staff of Transformation is in a royal crypt southwest of Endor. And with it, you'll be able to sneak into the monster's castle And by Monster's Castle, I think he means Necroso's castle. So that's our next destination. The crypt isn't too complicated, but it does reuse the same arrow floor puzzle from the Sororda cave. On one hand, it's cool to see the gimmick return. On the other hand, the Sororda cave did it way better. Reusing the same puzzle kind of cheapens how unique that earlier dungeon felt. But hey, at least it's short. And finding the Staff of Transformation isn't that hard. And once we have it, we're ready for the next major step in the story. Now, with the Staff of Transformation in hand, our next destination is the Castle of Monsters. But on the way there, we stumble onto a hidden riverside town called Riverton. And Riverton is cool. It's not visible on the world map. You can only find it by sailing down the river until you hit it. But the entire town is built around the water, with NPCs on boats in the water. And then there's the guy in the item shop who's trying to build a hot air balloon, which I'm sure won't be important later, right? Also, the innkeeper in this town is asleep until you walk up to his inn, and then he sprints to his counter like he's been awake the whole time. I found that very funny. But anyway, after we get out of the town, we've got a major problem. There's a massive body of water between us and the monster castle, and we can't exactly carry our boat over land. So how do we cross? We pilot a giant robot, of course. No, I'm not kidding. There's a colossal stone robot on the riverbank. You go inside of it, which is treated like a dungeon, by the way, complete with an obnoxiously high encounter rate. You find the control lever, and then literally walk the robot across the river. If this isn't absolutely ridiculous, I don't know what is. Once we reach the castle, we use the Staff of Transform to disguise ourselves as a random monster. And it works perfectly. Every monster in the castle thinks we're one of them. And down in the basement, we find imprisoned humans begging for help. And yeah, it gets grim. They're terrified and they're desperate. And they're basically doing everything they can to make sure it's the other guy who gets eaten and not them. And unfortunately, you can't save them. I even looked it up, and there's no way to free these people that I know of. If someone in the comments knows otherwise, please tell me, because I would love to be wrong here. As we explore, the monsters keep telling us, go to the second floor, there's a big meeting. So we head up there, and Necroso teleports in. This is the first time our heroes have actually seen Necroso face to face. And he delivers a speech to the entire Council of Monsters. And the main gist of it is, something terrible has happened in the town of Alcatumo. Eustric, the ruler of evil, has revived. The miners dug way too deep and reached the evil world. And now all of them have to head to Alcatumo and bring the King of Evil to their castle. Yep, remember that mining town from Chapter 4? The one full of poisonous gas and the dying miners? Turns out the reason that poison gas started leaking into the town was because they dug too deep and found the King of Evil. and now he's waking up. So that's where we're heading next. We return to Alcatumo, and somehow it's even worse than before. Almost everyone is dead. You can't even stay at the inn because the innkeeper is dead. There are very few survivors, a woman and a priest. The woman begs you to leave before you die too. Inside the mines, the remaining miners are panicking, coughing, or already dead. One guy is running in circles, screaming about monsters. It's pretty dark, honestly. But then, of course, the tone is completely shifted when you find a random monster in the cave, multiple random monsters actually, who are completely lost. Yeah, they're looking for the King of Evil's castle, and apparently they got lost in the mines, which is just hilarious. As we go deeper, the mine eventually opens into a massive cavern, and inside it is a castle. We go through the castle a bit, and we find the King of Evil has not fully resurrected yet. He's asleep. Now, we could let him nap, or we could kill the absolute crap out of him before he wakes up. Yeah, we're gonna kill the crap out of this guy. And this fight is actually pretty interesting. While asleep, the King of Evil only emits a weird, damaging aura. If he wakes up, he gets 2 turns per round, and he hits like a truck. But here's the trick. You can actually put him back to sleep with sleep magic, which is something I highly recommend doing. Eventually, we take him down. And right after the battle, Necroso walks in with his elite monsters and sees the King of Evil's corpse and is stunned. He's like, he's been destroyed? But only the hero, a descendant of the Zenithians, could do this. Are you the? And before he could finish, another monster rushes in and informs him that Rosa, the elf girl, has been abducted by humans. And now Necroso straight up loses it. He curses and tells everyone to return to base. And they head off. So after we kill the King of Evil, we can explore his castle a bit. And tucked away inside is a gas canister. What's it for? Take a wild guess. Yup. We bring it back to the guy in Riverton, and he uses it to finish building his hot air balloon. He actually plans to mass produce these things and get rich, but he gives us the first one for free. What a nice guy. Before we take off into the sky, there's something important we need to do. If you go back to Izmit Village and sleep at the inn, you get another dream sequence. And yeah, it's rough. Yeah, I think Necroso's hatred for humans is starting to make a little more sense. It's not entirely justified, but it's definitely understandable. With that emotional gut punch out of the way, our next destination is Elfville, which we find by using the treasure map we got from Minotist way earlier in the game. And when we arrive, someone is at the top of the giant tree, which turns out to be the world tree in this game. And it turns out they're shouting for help and insisting people come up in groups of 3. So we take 3 party members up to meet Lucia, a Zenithian whose wings were broken by monsters while she was collecting world tree leaves. She asks if we can take her back to Zenithia. We have no idea how to get there, but sure, hop in the party, lady. Also, at the top of the tree is the Zenithian sword, meaning we now have the full set of Zenithian equipment. Our next stop is Goatside, a really cool town with a bunch of pyramid-like structures built around a river. There's also a prophet here who basically says, "Congrats on killing Uhtred, the ruler of evil." Problem, Necroso is still out there. Bigger problem, I have no prophecy about him. So everyone is panicking because the prophecy ends with Uhtred. Necroso is a total wild card. There's also another Zenithian here who literally fell out of the sky, and he tells us to go speak to Master Dragon or the world is doomed. Who is Master Dragon? I have no idea who he is, but I do know to reach him, we need to climb the Zenithian Tower. Now, Zenithian Tower is a massive, huge maze of staircases and platforms. But eventually we reach the top and a cloud descends to carry us up to Zenithia, the floating castle in the sky. As soon as we arrive, Lucia runs off to tell everyone she's safe. And Zenithia is full of lore. Here are the highlights. A Zenithian woman explains that a Zenithian girl fell in love with a woodsman. They had a child, the woodsman died, and she was taken back to Zenithia. But she never forgot the child she left behind. And yes, that child is you. Why didn't she take the baby with her? Why didn't she just stay on Earth? The game never explains it. My best guess is Zenithians are terrible at parenting. Then we can go to the library and talk to some of the people who are reading books. And here we learn that Uhtred created the secret of evolution. It mutates beings unnaturally. The Zenithians and Master Dragon fought him and sealed him underground. His version was incomplete, by the way, because it lacked the golden bracelet. And the secret of evolution is apparently the source of all evil. It should have been buried forever, but hatred and resentment led to its rediscovery. And yeah, this is the lore backbone to the entire game. And finally, after we explore Zenithia enough, we reach Master Dragon, who basically says he knows why we're here. Even he can't stop Necroso's final evolution. Humans are weak, but capable of miracles. He places his hope in us. He grants the hero 10,000 XP and powers up the Zenithian sword, and tells us that only we can defeat Necroso. And before we leave Zenithia, you can talk to Lucia again. She's down in the basement raising a bunch of baby dragons. And as a thanks for saving her, she actually sends one of the dragons to join your party. And honestly, that's adorable and awesome. Now all that's left to do is, well, If you're me, you grind like crazy before the final boss. But technically, all you have to do is jump out of the giant hole in the middle of the clouds. Yes, jump straight down. And somehow you survive. Not just you, the entire party, your horse, and your wagon falls and survives completely undamaged from jumping from miles high in the sky. Dragon Quest physics are just insane. Anyway, once you land, you enter a long, brutal cave that throws a little bit of everything at you. Puzzles, enemies, traps, and yes, even more arrow floor puzzles. They're not used as heavily as before, but when they do show up in this dungeon, they're used very well. I genuinely love this puzzle mechanic, if you haven't already guessed. And eventually we make it to the end of the cave. And the first place you find here is the last refuge, where a Zenithian spirit lets you save and heal. And trust me, you'll need it. To reach Necroso, you have to defeat 4 major bosses, each one powering part of the barrier surrounding the castle that leads to Necroso. Most of these bosses aren't super noteworthy, but one boss layer does manage to stand out. The Den of the Gaija Demon. Here you run into these clay droid things that mimic your every move. So you have to make them get stuck on these blocks and use your positioning to make it to where you can get by them. Because if they touch you, they send you back to the start of the dungeon. I thought this was a really cool puzzle, and I actually enjoyed myself. And another boss that was somewhat notable to me was Ray Divine. And he's impressed you made it this far. But then he tells you you're too late and that Necroso is about to awaken and only hatred remains in his soul. And then he drops this bomb. He is the one who ordered Rose's abduction. That's it. He doesn't explain why, and after you beat him, all he really says is, "How I regret my curse on you." And he dies. What just happened? It feels like a half-baked plot twist that never gets expanded on. Why did he want Rose dead? Why is this even here in the game? And what curse did he put on you? This could have been a really cool twist had they actually, developed it and explained things a little more. But I'll save the rest of that rant for later. For now, let's move on. Anyway, after beating all 4 bosses, I went back to the last refuge to heal and save one last time before the end game. And the spirit there suddenly mentions something called the Baron's Bulge. What is that? Why is it only mentioned right before the final boss? Why didn't the game tell me about it earlier? I ended up having to Google the thing, and it turns out the Baron's Bulge is a horn you can get from the shrine east of Goatside. The shrine has no enemies in it, and the puzzle is laughably easy. Jump down a hole, hop off an elevator, walk down some stairs, and boom, Baron's Bulge. I'm sure you could beat the game without it, but I'm not taking any chances. As you see, the Baron's Bulge makes it to where you can take the entire party into the last battle with you. Very important, but I'm pretty sure you can beat the game without it. And with the bulge in hand, we head into the final castle. And the last castle is a big, maze-like structure, but it's manageable. After that, we climb the mountain, we use the Baron's Bulge to summon the wagon, and march straight up to Necroso's throne. And he's not looking so hot. In his first form, he actually looks just like Oostric. But it turns out he doesn't have any memories left. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's doing. All he knows is he wants to destroy everything. So yeah, we have to take him down. This fight is long, with multiple phases, and the sprite animation is incredible for an NES game. Necroso mutates over and over, each form more monstrous than the last. But eventually, we defeat him, and the dark world collapses. In a beautifully animated cutscene, Master Dragon swoops in, grabs the hero, and carries him and the party back to Zenithia. And then he gives a speech thanking each of the chosen ones. Ragnar for his strength, Elena for her courage, Bray and Christo for their loyalty, Mara and Nara for honoring their father, Talon for helping the world through trade, and the hero for leading them all. He even offers to let the hero stay in Zenithia forever. But the hero chooses to return to the world below with his friends, and Master Dragon respects the choice. Then we see a montage of the hero dropping everyone off in their hometown via hot air balloon. Even Elena's castle is restored. Her father and everyone are suddenly back. How? Where'd they go? How did they get back? The game never explains it. They're just back. Okay then. And finally, the hero returns to his destroyed home village. He walks to the field where he used to play with his best friend Celia. And the poison swamp around him transforms into flowers. And Celia appears and hugs him. And the rest of the party just walk up behind him. And then the game ends. I thought he dropped everyone off at their homes. Did they all just walk here? Who knows? But that is the story of Dragon Quest IV. Okay. Hoo boy. Look, I'm just gonna be honest here. The story had potential to be amazing. There are moments here where you can see the brilliance. There are ideas here that could have made for a genuinely epic narrative. But the game fumbles it. Hard. In more ways than one. And don't worry, I got a list. Let's start with the biggest offender. Zenithia is supposed to be the backbone of the entire plot. The whole game basically revolves around the idea that you're half human and half Zenithian. But what even is a Zenithian? Seriously, what are they? All the game ever tells you is, they live in a castle in the sky. They have wings. And they're important because reasons. That's it. And then there's Master Dragon. Who is he? What is he? Why does he rule Zenithia? None of this is ever explained. The first time he's even mentioned is by that Zenithian who fell out of the sky near Goatside. And suddenly, everyone acts like we're supposed to know who this giant cosmic dragon is. We don't! And then there's the weird devil-looking guy in Zenithia who grows world trees. Why is he growing world trees? What even is a world tree in this universe? I mean, in Norse mythology, the world tree was Yggdrasil, the thing that binds the realms together. But here, there are multiple world trees. One on Earth, and apparently Zenithia has a garden full of them. So is Zenithia another dimension? Another plane of existence? The game never explains! And don't even get me started on the Zenithian woman who fell in love with a woodsman and had a child, and then got dragged back to Zenithia. Why didn't she take her child with her? Why didn't she stay with the child? Why didn't the Zenithians let her keep her baby? Did she have a good reason? Did the Zenithians forbid it? Did she not have a choice? The game never tells you. It's just, yeah, she left her baby behind. Anyway, moving on. No! Explain that! That's kind of important! Remember how in Chapter 2, Santum Castle gets completely emptied out and everyone disappears? There is no explanation for why they left, which works for the mystery of the game. And later, Balzik takes it over and uses it, but after that, it's still empty. And then, at the end of the game, everyone is suddenly back! Her father, the guards, the staff, all alive and well. Where did they go? Were they kidnapped? Were they hiding? Were they on vacation? The game never explains it! They're just magically back like nothing happened. Then, there's the Rose and Necroso storyline. It could have been incredible. It should have been the emotional core of the entire game. But the game gives you almost nothing! Where did they meet? Why does Rose cry ruby tears? How long were they together? Why does Necroso command an entire monster army? And how did he rise to power? And here's the weirdest part. One of Necroso's own lieutenants orders Rose's abduction, so Necroso would have more hatred in his heart. Like, what? Why? What was the plan? Why sabotage your own leader's sanity?
No more gods, no more graves. Are you friend or fiend? No more life, no more death. Somewhere in between.
And where the heck was Celia? Seriously, the hero's best friend, Celia. I thought she died at the hands of Necroso in the beginning of the game. Yet when you return and the flowers return to the meadow, she just appears. Where was she? Is she back from the dead? Did she just shapeshift into dirt? Like, what? Give me some explanation here. What happened to her? Look, I can forgive the early Dragon Quest games for having thin stories. They were simple, they were early, and they weren't really trying to be deep. But Dragon Quest IV tries to have an epic, emotional, interconnected narrative, and it just doesn't stick the landing. There are too many half-explained ideas, too many moments where the game clearly wants you to feel something, but it doesn't give you enough information to actually feel it. It's like the writers had a great outline for an amazing story, but only finished 70% of the script. Next, let's talk about the characters of Dragon Quest IV. Now, this is another area where the game stumbles. And yes, Dragon Quest II had this problem as well. But I can give Dragon Quest I and III a pass. Why? Because Dragon Quest I, it's just you. The hero on screen is basically just an avatar for you. In Dragon Quest III, your party members are literally custom built in a tavern. They're not characters with backstories, they're just stat blocks you hired off Craigslist. But Dragon Quest IV, this game has actual characters with motivations, backstory, and a little bit of dialogue. But yet, they still barely talk. Yes, it's definitely an improvement over Dragon Quest II, but it's still nowhere near what I would call good character writing. I can tell you each character's backstory and their one defining motivation, and that's about it. I can't tell you what their personalities are, how they feel about the events of the story, how they interact with each other, what are their relationships beyond we're in the same party. And the fact they basically stop talking after you get them in Chapter 5? Like, what the heck? The game expects me to believe that by the end, these people are all best friends, but I barely saw them speak to each other. I'm sure they bonded off-screen, somewhere, somehow. I just wish the game let us talk to them more, learn how the journey affected them emotionally, and see how they reacted to the story events. It's just another area where the game could have been incredible, but just doesn't follow through. And since we're already talking about things that fall flat, let's talk about the side content. There isn't much. There's a little here and there, but nothing major. The one standout is the Stone of Drought quest, and to be fair, that one's actually pretty cool. You go to a seaside village and learn about the Stone of Drought, which repels water. You come back to the village at night, when the tide is high, and you see a spot where the water mysteriously refuses to rise. Go there the next day, and boom, you will see the Stone of Drought. And you can use it in a later cave to part a waterfall and enter a hidden area with really good loot. It's neat, and it's clever. There's also the casino, and I'm gonna be honest, I love the casino. Best side activity in any Dragon Quest game I ever played in this marathon, hands down. And now let's talk about the music. And honestly, the soundtrack is pretty good, in places. The first track that really grabbed me was the Colosseum theme. The one that plays when you're inside, but not fighting. It's just awesome. Also, Chapter 5's overworld theme, also great. In the town of Akatumo, its theme is incredibly sad and sets the tone perfectly. It also plays when the hero's hometown is obliterated, and it fits that scene perfectly. Speaking of the hero, the theme that plays when he enters the overworld right after his village is wiped out perfectly captures the loneliness and sadness of Chapter 5's opening. It really sells the idea that he's completely alone in the world. And the final boss theme? Yeah, that one's great too. Not Phase 1, that one's okay but nothing special. But the final form themes? It fits Necroso's monstrous transformation perfectly. And Chapter 4's battle theme, Gypsy Dance, is also a really great battle theme. And lastly, I'd like to bring up the casino theme, because it's also really good. Now let's talk about the thing everyone who's played this game has been waiting for me to talk about. The combat system. For most of the game, you can only control the hero. Everyone else is controlled by the game's new Tactics AI system. You can set general strategies like offensive, defensive, save MP, and so on. But you can't directly control your party members. Sometimes the AI is smart, and other times, Christo tries to cast Beat on the boss. Yeah, they're not always the brightest things in the box. One of my favorite characters to use in my party, by the way, is Talon, because he's basically a better version of the goof-off. Because in Dragon Quest III, the goof-off sucked, because you couldn't reliably control them, their stats were terrible, their random actions were useless, but Talon, well, he has good stats for starters. You can't control him anyway. His random actions are actually helpful. He can calm monsters down and make them retreat, and he can sing enemies to sleep. He can also make bad puns that are so funny that the monsters lose a turn from laughing. Let me repeat that. Talon makes monsters laugh so hard they can't defend themselves, and then the party proceeds to kill the crap out of it while it's laughing. If that's not messed up, I don't know what is. Dragon Quest IV gets dark sometimes. Seriously. And speaking of the AI combat system, programming it was absolute hell for the team. Yuji Horii and Kakaka Hakamuru said this themselves in interviews. They wanted Dragon Quest IV to be something new, not just Dragon Quest III Part 2. So from the very beginning, they committed to building a full AI-driven party system. And that decision made development way harder than they expected. According to Nakamura, the AI system was rewritten around 12 times during development. Not tweaked, not adjusted, completely rewritten. Here's a direct quote from an interview. How many times did we overhaul the AI system programming? 12 times. That's why it took over a year. A full year just on AI. And remember, this is on NES hardware, and they were trying to make the party members learn enemy HP, choose spells intelligently, conserve MP, adapt mid-battle, avoid wasting turns, and follow your tactics commands. All with tiny memory limits and no modern tools. Horii even admitted he was terrified the system wouldn't work. And they even discussed adding a manual control mode as a backup plan. But they decided not to because they knew players would just use that instead of the AI. So they doubled down. Another reason it was so hard is because the team wasn't just making a combat system. They were inventing one. There was no model of this before. They had to create something entirely new. Up to Dragon Quest III, the series had been building on existing RPG ideas. But Dragon Quest IV, they wanted to create something no other RPG had attempted. And the AI wasn't just smart, it had to be fun. Horii said in the interview, if the AI always chose the best option, it makes the strategy meaningless. So they had to intentionally make the AI smart enough to be useful, but not so smart that it solved the game for you. That's a very delicate balance. And might I remind you, they were doing this on NES hardware. So if it was so difficult, why did they do it? Well, despite all the pain, the team believed the AI system was worth it. Nakamura said, "I think the AI system was a success." And Horii said he wanted you to feel like you were directing the battles. They wanted Dragon Quest IV to feel different, not just a bigger Dragon Quest III, but a new kind of RPG, where a player acted like a general commanding a team. Whether they succeeded or not is definitely up for debate, but the ambition is undeniable. Now, I personally am not a huge fan of this AI-driven combat system, but that's just a personal preference. I just like having complete control of my party. But I will say it is definitely a unique experience. And with that, I've officially completed the Dragon Quest Marathon. Over the past little while, I played through Dragon Quest 1 through to Dragon Quest 4. And now that we're at the end of the month, what do I think of the series so far? Well, it definitely had some high points. Dragon Quest 3, fantastic. Easily the standout RPG of the NES era. And it still holds up today. But the rest of them, I don't think I can recommend them to the average player. If you're interested in RPG history, then yes, absolutely give these games a try. They're important and they're influential. And they laid the foundation for basically every JRPG that came after. But looking back at all four, outside of 3, they all have glaring flaws that hold them back. 1 is historically important, but painfully outdated. 2 is ambitious, but messy and grindy. And 4 has amazing ideas, but fumbles the story and characters. Still, despite all of that, these games were special for their time. And the dev team clearly poured their hearts and souls into them. Many of the RPGs I love today simply would not exist without Dragon Quest. And honestly, it's kind of wild to think, but the series is still going strong today. In fact, while I was making this video, the trailer for Dragon Quest XIII dropped, and it looks pretty decent. Will I ever play more Dragon Quest on the channel? Likely yes. I do eventually want to play Hand of the Heavenly Bride and Realms of Revelation, just to see where this series goes. But that's going to be a while, because I am Dragon Quested out for a while. And to those who watched this video, or watched through the entire marathon, thank you. Seriously. It means a lot to me that you stuck with me through the video, or through all 4 videos. And hopefully the next time you hear from me will be the launch of Myths and Monsters, which comes out next Friday. I really hope to see you there. Wishlist the game and hopefully pick it up at launch. Supporting the studio would mean the world to me. It will be available on itch.io and Steam. Comment down below with your favorite Dragon Quest memories, or tell me what your favorite Dragon Quest game is and why. And of course, like and subscribe, you all know the drill. Can't wait to see you guys again. Hopefully it will be next Friday for the launch of Myths and Monsters. This is Troy Schultz, the Anti-Gamer Slayer, signing off!